The member for Hotham.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Assistant Treasurer. The Assistant Treasurer is responsible for financial services, including the big banks. Can the Assistant Treasurer confirm that instead of cracking down on misconduct in the banking sector, he voted against a Royal Commission 26 times, and he is now exploiting the victims of bank misconduct by using the Royal Commission as an opportunity to raise funds for the Liberal Party?
The Leader of the House on a point of order. Members on both sides, I want to hear the Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, I'm not sure why the latter half of that question is in order. And it's also a very unfortunate slur and smear on the Assistant Treasurer, and I'll ask her to withdraw.
Could the Leader of the House just pause for a second? I'm trying to hear the Leader of the House without those behind him interjecting. If you could just rewind.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think the phraseology of the member for Hotham should be withdrawn. It was a slur on the Assistant Treasurer, and the second half of the question is not within the Assistant Treasurer's responsibilities and therefore is not in order.
The members, when I seek to hear from the Leader of the House and the Manager of Opposition Business, can I just say to those interjecting behind them, they really don't help the cause of the person at the dispatch box seeking to make the point of order. The Manager of Opposition Business on the point of order.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. The questions go directly to the use of the minister's ministerial authority and the role that he has with financial services. They refer to him using that office with respect to the Royal Commission, quite specifically for a fundraiser. This has also appeared online as an article.
Our Manager of Opposition Business won't introduce new material. We're just simply adjudicating on the question. So it's not an opportunity.
So, quite simply, what the question asks is whether or not he's used his ministerial authority in this way instead of looking after the victims of the banks.
The Leader of the House, further to the point of order.
Mr Speaker, further to the point of order. Firstly, that's not what the question asked, and now it's being changed by the Manager of Opposition Business. And secondly, the responsibility for the Royal Commission is in the portfolio of the Treasurer, not the Assistant Treasurer, and therefore the question is misdirected to the Assistant Treasurer. It should be answered, if at all, by the Treasurer. It's simply a political ruse and an attempt to smear the Assistant Treasurer, and for that reason alone it should be ruled out.
I'm ready to rule on the matter, having listened to both the Leader of the House, the Manager of Opposition Business. I'm certainly not comfortable with the language that just makes assertions, as it did. I'm really not, and those on my left wouldn't be comfortable if that sort of language was directed back at them, and that language shouldn't be in a question. The first part of the question is clearly in order. The first part about whether the minister voted against or voted in a certain way. So I'm going to allow the minister to address that part of it and caution future questions. The minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for her question. Just to put any doubt to the issue at stake, Fairfax has reported that I was invited by the member of Fisher to speak.
The Assistant Treasurer, I think I've ruled out the second part of the question that relates to it on the basis that it was traducing his character. So, if the Assistant Minister, members on my left, if the Assistant Minister wants to refer to the matters that I've ruled out of order, I don't think that's a good idea. I've just asked, because I've ruled them out of order quite deliberately because of a result of their language and because of the motives or the improper motives that are implied. The Assistant Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This is the government that instituted the Royal Commission. This is the government that put the Royal Commission into place. And let me give some perspective to those opposite. I did all of the post-GFC banking inquiries. I did the Ripoll inquiry into post-FOFA. And on all of those areas, in all of those issues,
Members
not
on my
once
left.
did those opposite raise this issue. In fact, 34 days before this government was elected in 2013, the Leader of the Opposition made the point that our banks were well regulated and well structured. After 6 years after the GFC, after $60 or $70 billion was wiped off the balance sheets of individual Australians, as we saw through all of the post-GFC banking inquiries, and those did nothing. They did nothing on the other side. Yet what this government has done is legion. Even last week we saw penalties being increased 500% in terms of criminal terms, 400% in terms of civil penalties, and Labor wanted to vote against that. For 6 years, those opposite dealt with the post-GFC banking inquiries and didn't move once when it came to penalties. Not a single time when it came to penalties. Well, this government is acting. Penalties have now increased tenfold for corporations, tenfold. Criminal penalties, fivefold for those who are seeking to defraud Australians and Australian people and corporations and small business. That's what this government is doing. We're acting. We're not sitting back and doing nothing. This government instituted the Royal Commission. Those opposite after the GFC simply put a parliamentary inquiry in place. So if those opposite want to look at what they did after the GFC compared to what this government has done, bring it on, I say. Bring on what we have done on this side in dealing with the phenomenal issues we've seen, the malfeasance we've seen. Bring it on. If those opposite want to talk about superannuation, let's have a discussion about protecting your super, where we want to save right now 5 million Australians from being overcharged on insurance, and those aren't supporting us. There are 2.4 million Australians with 2 super accounts paying two lots of insurance. There are 44,000 Australians with 5 super accounts paying 5 lots of insurance. Why don't those opposites stop posturing and come and join us in help protecting vulnerable Australians?